Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to a special Sunday edition of the Watchman Newscast live stream. Yesterday we let off the live stream saying evil is arrogant. Very true. We've seen that with Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah, and how their grand plans and the Iranian regime by extension have collapsed in the past 12 days. 42 years of sinister work building up this machine, and now it's all unraveling. So evil is arrogant because they didn't expect this. But evil, frankly, folks, can also be very stupid. I bring you the Houthis in Yemen. Now, back in July, the Houthis fired a drone at Tel Aviv, at an apartment building in Tel Aviv, struck the building, killed an Israeli civilian, a man who was probably sleeping in his bed, civilian. Israel responded, this is late July, massive airstrikes on the Hodeidah port in Yemen. That's about 1,000 miles south of Israel, by the way. Strike this port, massive explosion, plumes of smoke seen throughout the Middle East. Throughout the region, you could see it. You would think message sent. The Houthis have learned their lesson. But no, the Houthis, after a brief lull, July, August, the Houthis are back at it again. In the past 2 weeks, the Houthis have fired at least 3, I think 4 actually, ballistic missiles at Israel, aiming specifically at Tel Aviv. The latest on yesterday actually, the intent, according to the Houthis themselves, was to possibly strike Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv because Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, was returning from the UN General Assembly, the speech he gave there from New York, and this rocket was timed, or this missile was timed to coincide with his arrival at Ben Gurion Airport. Now, thankfully, it was intercepted before it even entered Israeli airspace. But it shows you one thing. The Houthis are very, very determined because, folks, look, it's a spiritual battle at the end of the day. It's a demonic obsession with destroying Israel. No other way to put it. So it shows you that. And number two, it shows you that the Houthis aren't very bright because they experienced the wrath of Israel in July, yet they keep firing the missiles. Did they really think Israel wasn't going to respond? Did they think, well, Israel's so preoccupied right now with Lebanon and crushing Hezbollah, and still to a degree in Gaza, and Israel carried out some strikes in Syria over the past 2 days as well, the other rings on that Iranian-backed ring of fire. Did the Houthis really think, well, they'll forget about us, we can get away with this? Well, it wasn't to be for the Houthis, as Israel this morning carried out massive airstrikes against another Iranian proxy in Yemen, the Houthis. We're going to break it all down in a minute. Number one, you want to know what happened there today, folks. The explosions today, the strikes today, were even larger than the ones I mentioned back in July in Yemen. So you're going to want to know about that. And I'll pose a question here. I'd love you to answer it off the bat. Is Iran's ring of fire strategy unraveling before our very eyes? What do I mean by that? Iran has spent years, I mentioned, Hezbollah founded in 1982, 42 years of building Hezbollah up and building Hezbollah up into this 800-pound gorilla, or at least that's what many thought, until they've been decimated over the past week and a half by Israel. Building up Hezbollah, building up Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza, the militias, about 100,000 of those militia fighters in Iraq alone, Syria as well, Yemen with the Houthis, of course, trying to make inroads into Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland. The world calls it the West Bank. We call it Judea and Samaria because, folks, that's what the Bible calls it. And if it's good enough for the word of God, it's more than good enough for us. They've spent years employing this strategy. We will surround Israel on all sides. Israel, tiny nation the size of the state of New Jersey. They called it the unity of fronts, the ring of fire. Well, now the Gaza ring has disappeared. Hamas and Islamic Jihad are in their death throes. Lebanon is on its way to perhaps disappearing as Hezbollah suffers massive, massive blows that it may not be able to recover from. So Gaza and Lebanon were arguably the two most crucial rings on that ring of fire. I'd add Syria into that mix for a variety of reasons, logistical. So is that strategy out the window now for Iran? It's collapsing before their eyes in the span of a little less than 1 year. October 7th, Hamas signed its own death warrant. And it appears that a day later, on October 8th, when Hezbollah began unilaterally launching rockets, missiles, drones, and mortars at Israel, they may very well have signed their death warrant as well. And did that mean a death knell for the ring of fire strategy? That's one question for you. And I'm like that teacher who annoys you with the test where there's like a two-part question. Number one, then underneath there's A, B, C, and D, a question broken into different parts. But you're the most educated audience on YouTube, my watchmen and women on the wall, so you can more than handle it. Okay, part one, ring of fire over, or can Iran rebuild that ring of fire? And number two, does this mean if indeed that ring of fire is going by the wayside gradually, and it's still very much alive, we'll discuss in a minute, but it looks like it's not what it was, does that mean that Iran is going to cleave closer to nation states as it's been doing, but even more closely? Do they say now, okay, we can't count on the proxies. We need to call in the big boys. And I've been calling it the Gathering Storm Coalition: Iran, Russia, China, and North Korea. Four nations with varying ideologies, of course, but united in their hatred of the West, in their hatred of what I call the free world, or what used to be, if you look at some of these left-wing governments in the West and their policies, and their hatred of Israel. You might say, wait, Russia doesn't hate Israel. You wait. You just wait and see how things are developing. Tomorrow, Russia's prime minister is in Iran, meeting with Iran's leadership. Interesting timing, huh? Prophetic timing? Can you say Ezekiel 38 and 39? We'll talk about it more in a minute. But does Iran lean into them more? Okay, we can't rely on the proxies, but we still have this stated ideological goal of destroying the Zionist entity, as they call Israel. We need bigger help. At the end of the day, nation states are the real way to flex muscle and get things done. So two-parter there. Let me know what you think. I'll throw that down. And also, we've got some political news. Israeli, for all of our Israeli political watchers, you know that Israeli politics are crazy. I say that with love and fondness. But man, oh man, sit in a Knesset session, and if you think you have a rambunctious political process in your country, and we've got people from all over the world watching us, check out the Knesset. But big political development there. Gideon Sa'ar, the New Hope Party. He just announced he's joining the Netanyahu government. Folks, this means that Bibi's coalition now has 68 seats in the 120-seat Israeli Knesset. For my Israeli political watchers, can correct me if I'm wrong or confirm if I'm right, that seems to give Bibi quite a mandate. That's a pretty, considering Israeli politics, how divisive it is, and 4 elections in 5 years and all the rest we've seen over the past few years, 68 seats? I would think that bolsters Netanyahu pretty strongly. And not only that, look, he's had, can we say, successes? Wow. Nasrallah, Hezbollah's leader, eliminated. Haniyeh, Hamas's leader, eliminated. Hezbollah in the process of being crushed. Hamas crushed for the most part. Israel announced on Friday that Hamas as a military fighting force is done. 23 of 24 Hamas battalions eliminated since October 7th. Hamas still alive? Yes. As a guerrilla force in Gaza? Yes. But not to pose any sort of October 7th style threat or thousands of rockets at Israel style threat anymore. So is Bibi's position strengthened? To all my Israeli political watchers, and we have Israelis watching us, shalom everyone. We have people living in Israel, native Israelis who watch us on a regular basis. You're on the ground. I hope to get back on the ground very soon. Been a little crazy with flights getting canceled to and from Israel, but I'll be back, as Arnold once said. But what does that mean? It seems to bode well for Bibi. And I'll tell you, if it gives him a mandate, that might give him a mandate to really push forward even more strongly against Hezbollah and Iran. We shall see. But before I go any further, and one more thing to mention, we've got a lot to unpack, right, on your Sunday afternoon. Nasrallah, the strike against him in Beirut on Friday. We are learning, folks, that was the tip of the iceberg. The big fish, obviously, the leader of Hezbollah for the last 32 years, Hassan Nasrallah. There were 20 other top Hezbollah terrorists killed in that strike and an Iranian general. Want to unpack that more a bit. And Bibi said in his speech to the General Assembly on Friday that Israel is not only eliminating Hezbollah's leaders, they are also eliminating the replacements and the replacements of the replacements. I thought that was a great soundbite from Netanyahu, but a little bit more on that too. Another Hezbollah big fish was killed in the past 24 hours as that group, I mean, who's left to call the shots? We'll discuss it in a minute. But hey, quick reminder, if you like what you're hearing and you appreciate this kind of news and breaking news and current events from an unapologetically biblical perspective for such a time as this, times when good is called evil and evil is called good, Bible times, prophetic times, hey, make sure to subscribe and click notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. We're at 990,000 subscribers, folks. Wow, look at God. And our goal is to hit 1 million by the end of the year, December 31st. Hey, maybe we'll hit it at this pace. Maybe in October we'll hit it. Who knows? But we love your support there. And when you do subscribe, it enables YouTube, or it motivates YouTube, I should say, to send the videos out more to a broader audience. And that's good because people get a message of truth in times where truth is at a premium. So we'd love if you could subscribe. And man, good things are happening, right? In terms of getting the message out. Bad things are happening in the world, but some good things have happened, I think, for Israel. Game-changing, historic things over the past few days. Let's unpack this strike against the Houthis. The Times of Israel has a pretty good summary here that I want to unpack for you. Let's see what we have. Pardon me one second. I'm just pulling this up on my phone. Here we go. Here's a headline. And this really, it's Sunday. I came to you yesterday. By the way, we were live with you yesterday when we confirmed, yes, Nasrallah's dead. It was confirmed yesterday. We came to you right away. Know that if you miss any of our newscasts, our live streams, videos, you can go to our homepage. Right under newscast, every video is there. If you need to catch up, they're all right there in our archives. Okay, here's the headline. This is only the second time that Israel has hit Yemen, over 1,000 miles away, hugging the Red Sea coast. Dozens of Israeli planes strike port and power plants in Yemen after Houthi missile attacks. Here's the headline. A day after the Houthis claimed that a missile targeted Prime Minister Netanyahu's plane, as I mentioned, at Ben Gurion Airport, the Israeli Air Force hit Hodeida and Ras Isa port, where the Iran-backed group, the Houthis, were said to receive arms and oil. The Houthis say 4 of their jihadis were killed. Here we go. The Israeli Air Force launched the airstrikes today against infrastructure in western Yemen that the IDF said was used by the Houthis. Second ever strike, and it was more extensive, according to the Times of Israel, than the one in July. It also came as the Israeli Air Force, I should mention this as well, continued to strike targets in Lebanon, Gaza, and Syria. So the entire ring of fire was struck this weekend, folks. The strikes against Hezbollah have continued, against, in specific, rocket launchers. You could have this massive arsenal of rockets and missiles and drones. And by the way, that arsenal has been depleted to a pretty considerable degree over the past 12 days. But if you don't have the launchers to launch them, then it doesn't do you much good. So Israel very wisely has been taking out the Hezbollah launchers. Also struck in Gaza this weekend against the remnants of Hamas, and in Syria against certainly Iran-backed forces there. So as I said at the top, the Houthis probably say, man, they're so preoccupied. We can fire a few missiles. We may get lucky and, hit Tel Aviv. And what are they going to do about it? We're 1,000 miles away. Evil, that's a combination. That's a hybrid mix of arrogance and stupidity. And evil can be both. So a little bit more. In a statement, the Israeli military said that dozens, it's a big operation, dozens of Israeli aircraft, including fighter jets, refuelers, remember, it's 1,000 miles away, got to refuel, and spy planes participated in the strikes. They targeted sites used by the Houthi regime for military purposes at the port city of Hodeidah. Hey, that was the same place Israel hit in July, Hodeidah. So the Houthis were busy trying to build that back up. And also the nearby port of Ras Isa in western Yemen. And the IDF said that they, quote, attacked power plants and a port which are used to import oil. Through the targeted infrastructure and ports, the Houthi regime transfers Iranian weapons to the region and supplies for military surprise purposes, including oil. The strikes caused power outages in most parts of those port cities, and they were a response to the Houthi ballistic missile attacks. Yoav Gallant, Israel's defense minister, said, "Our message is clear for us. No place is too far." And you got to think that the Iranian regime's taking notes. Hey, the Yemen strike, Israeli fighter jets had to travel an even further distance than they would to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. So to say that Israel has reestablished deterrence over the past 2 weeks alone, and really this started in July, is an understatement. Well, let's backtrack real quick. July, as I mentioned, the strike against Hodeidah port in Yemen, massive. Taking out Fuad Shukr, at the time, Hezbollah's top military commander. Taking out Ismail Haniyeh, Hamas's top leader, in Tehran, under the Iranian regime's noses. That was late July alone. Late August, preemptively on August 25th, preemptively striking Hezbollah's rocket and missile launchers, massive strikes, before Hezbollah could retaliate for the death of Fuad Shukr. And then, beginning on September 17th, Operation Exploding Pager. Some have called it Operation Below the Belt because many times these Hezbollah jihadis wore the pagers on their belts or in their pockets, and they exploded down there and also in their hands, which left hundreds of Hezbollah terrorists blinded. And then the walkie-talkies blew up the next day. And then Israel's carrying out massive airstrikes throughout Lebanon against Hezbollah positions. And then Israel's destroying the elite Radwan force, taking out all of Hezbollah's top commanders. And then Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah goes bye-bye on Friday in Beirut with a massive strike, which left a crater in Dahiyah, which was a stronghold of Hezbollah in the southern suburbs of Beirut. Needless to say, Israel means business. And it's been really, I'll use the word, amusing to see Ayatollah Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader. You know that old biblical adage, you reap what you sow. He started all of this. As we mentioned at the top, he developed the Ring of Fire. He armed and developed and nurtured these proxies for years and years and placed them on Israel's borders with the stated intent to destroy the world's one and only Jewish state. He did this to himself. The snare that he finds himself in now is self-imposed. It's like Haman, who, by the way, was located in ancient Persia, modern-day Iran. He made the gallows for Mordecai and Mordecai's family. Yet Haman and his family were hung on the very gallows he made for Mordecai. That's justice. That's biblical justice. Read the book of Esther, refresh your memory. What I think we've seen the past few days is biblical level justice. And now the Iranian regime, which kicked this all off, created the monster, is now running scared. And they're calling for the UN to unite against Israel. And they're calling for the international community to condemn Israel. And Ayatollah Khamenei has gone into hiding. And I say it was amusing. I mean, yesterday he releases a statement, "We will avenge the death of Nasrallah. Hezbollah will never die." 5 minutes later, the Iranian regime announces Ayatollah Khamenei has now been removed to an undisclosed location for his safety. I'm sorry. You got to laugh. Because now what you have wrought is coming back on your own head. You meant for evil against Israel and the Jewish people. And folks, I have to tell you, that never ends well. Evil is arrogant, stupid, and it seems that in some cases, evil has a short memory in that, listen, time after time after time over the past 3,500 years, we've seen this script play out. A nation state, a regime, an individual, a group rises up against Israel and the Jewish people, vows to destroy Israel, and makes some headway, inflicts severe pain on the Jewish people. And yet, every single one of those regimes, nation states, individuals winds up dead, destroyed, and in the ash heap of history. Shall we do the roll call? You could probably recite it with me right now by memory. Pharaoh, the Assyrian Empire, the Philistines, the Amalekites, the Babylonians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Nazis, the Ottomans, the Soviets. We could go on and on and on. And now Hamas, and now Hezbollah. What don't they understand when God says, I have made an eternal covenant with Israel, an everlasting covenant with Israel? What don't these chaps understand? God means business. When you fight against Israel, ultimately, you're fighting against the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's not going to end well for you in these prophetic times. Hey, you might gain some short-term victories, no doubt. October 7th for them, big victory. Terror attacks over the years, no doubt. You for sure, you could gain some victories. But ultimately, the God of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. And he's very clear in the book of Amos that when I bring you back to the land, I'm bringing you back so that you will never be uprooted again. This is it. You were kicked out of the land twice. Babylonians destroy the first temple, 6th century. Romans destroy the temple, AD 70. The final death pangs, AD 132, the Bar Kokhba revolt fails miserably. And for the better part of 2,000 years, the Jewish people, the people of Israel, are scattered to the ends of the earth, as the Bible said would happen. But the Bible's also very clear. And by the way, there was always a Jewish remnant in the land of Israel in those 2,000 years. Sometimes it was small, but there was always a remnant there, to the point that by the 1850s, even before the Zionist movement kicked off, there was a Jewish majority in Jerusalem. Imagine that. You don't hear that in the mainstream media. In the 1850s, a Jewish majority in Jerusalem. And that was 50 years before the Zionist movement really spread its wings. So I digress. But listen, this is the big takeaway from world history. Against all odds, the Jewish people not only survive, they thrive. How? Is there 13, 14 million Jews in the entire world? They're 0.1% of the world's population. Yet, after 2,000 years, out of the ashes of the Holocaust, no less, 3 years after the Holocaust mercifully ends in 1945, Israel, for the first time in 2,000 years, is reestablishing a nation state in the very spot of its ancient and ancestral homeland. Who ever heard of such a thing in their lives? If that's not God, I don't know what is. And reviving the Hebrew language after it was mostly dormant for about 2,400 years? Hey, we could talk about this all day, and I'm not trying to get off on a tangent here, but this is a helpful reminder, because I've been astounded, folks. I'll be honest with you, as I've observed this since October 7th, how these evil ones just keep coming and coming relentlessly, bloodthirsty. You are going to get the same result every time. Again, you may have a momentary gain, but it ain't going to end well for you in the long run. History bears this out. come against Israel and the Jewish people, and ultimately, eventually, you'll meet your demise. Wow. Well, the Houthis, I think when Israel is, look, the Hezbollah fighting, that could, is there, we heard reports overnight that perhaps Israel was about to commence with some limited ground incursions in southern Lebanon. We don't know. But Hezbollah is, hey, they're down, no doubt, but they are not out. And if they could get, God forbid, someone to actually operate those rockets and missiles and drones they still have laying around, they could be quite dangerous. But the problem is, listen, we said this yesterday, Hezbollah had been built up into the 800-pound gorilla, as I call it, for years. Oh my gosh, Hezbollah, don't mess with them. Don't poke that Hezbollah bear. We expected 3,000 rockets a day raining down on Israeli cities. Now you're getting a trickle. Even after Nasrallah's death, folks, look, some have said, well, maybe Hezbollah's holding them in reserve. What are they waiting for at this point? Your entire leadership has been destroyed and killed. If you're not going to fire the rockets and missiles now, when are you going to fire them? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they have some elaborate trick up their sleeves, but I don't think they're that bright. Cunning, sly, in an evil way, yes. But when you continue to gather together large groups of your top leaders all in one place, making yourselves easy targets, when you know you're thoroughly infiltrated by Israeli intelligence, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of the other kind of intelligence at work inside their brains. And they are crucially short of experienced leaders now and commanders. They've all been, folks, it's a skeleton crew. So I don't know what kind of resistance Hezbollah at this point will be able to mount, although I can tell you, if Israel goes in on the ground, I'm sure Hezbollah will muster guerrilla fighters and anti-tank missiles and all the rest. And this could stretch on for weeks. It could get nasty, but that's just I don't want to say playing devil's advocate, literally in the case of Hezbollah, but just being cautious. And unlike them, the free world should not get overconfident, ever. There's no time to gloat, take victory laps, because they're still a formidable foe. And I don't think Israel's doing that. I think Israel's goal now, keep the pressure up. Keep the pressure on. Don't let up. Which brings me real quick to a quick point to make. Joe Biden. What can you even say at this point? I'm glad he emerged from the beach in Delaware. He says yesterday, we need an immediate ceasefire in Lebanon. Huh? So at the very moment, Israel has its most formidable, determined foe, Hezbollah, on the ropes. 42 years. Hezbollah with American blood on its hands. Biden should be thanking Israel. Ceasefire now. Why? To leave Hezbollah alive to fight another day? This is madness. Thank God Israel's saying, hey, go pound sand. Go pound the sand you're laying in Delaware on the beach. And not only that, the Houthis. This has been very instructive. I mentioned this yesterday, or Friday it may have been on the live stream. Complete indictment against the U.S. and the U.K. The U.S. and the U.K. have this alliance against the Houthis. And it's purely a defensive posture in the Red Sea. The Houthis continue to attack shipping in the Red Sea, including U.S. ships. Why hasn't the U.S. gone on the offensive like Israel just did today in Yemen? Israel did more in 2 airstrikes, one in July and one today, than the United States and the UK have done since November, October 2023, when the Houthis began turning the Red Sea into a war zone. I mean, what a disgrace. How weak. Weak men create hard times. Thankfully for Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu is not a weak man. There may be people who hate Bibi, hate him, love him, whatever. Same with Donald Trump. You don't like him, you like him. He's not a weak man. Bibi Netanyahu is not a weak man. And I believe they're both strong men and great leaders. Not as strong man in dictatorial sense. I mean, they're strong men. They're made of tough stuff. for such a time as this, the kind of leaders I believe America and Israel need. I'm not talking personality. Think policy. If you're an American, are you better now than you were 4 years ago? How's that working out for you? So in Israel, would you rather hand the reins over to Yair Lapid or someone like that? I don't think so with these kind of threats. So one last thing to mention here, which I think you'll find interesting. Alongside Nasrallah, in the strike in Dahia on Friday, Beirut, 4 Hezbollah commanders were killed. 4 of their last big fish and over 20 additional terrorists. Wow. How careless to again gather them all together in the same place. But folks, I don't know if they had any choice because their communication system has collapsed. It's been thoroughly compromised. And I said yesterday, look, if I'm a Hezbollah fighter right now, I'm afraid to turn on the microwave or run the vacuum. I'm afraid it's going to explode in my hands. It's time for like Pony Express or carrier pigeons to communicate, because electronically is not good for Hezbollah. They're in a tough spot. Can't say I'm sad for them. But in the past 24 hours, actually, the IDF announced this morning another. They're killing the replacements of the replacements. It's astounding. Nabil Kaouk was killed in an IDF airstrike also in Dahia in Beirut. He was a senior member of the terror group's Central Council, considered close to Hezbollah's leadership and directly involved in advancing terror attacks against the state of Israel and its citizens. Quick question. I said evil is stupid. Why on earth would you stay in Dahia if you're a Hezbollah leader or commander? Last Friday, Israel eliminated the entire Radwan force there in a strike on a building. On Friday, Israel eliminated Nasrallah, an Iranian general, and at least 20 other top-ranking terrorists and 4 commanders in Dahia. Wouldn't you kind of get the next cab out of Dahia if you're a Hezbollah member? I guess not. But hey, makes it easier for the IDF to find them and to target them. But folks, what a weekend. What a 12 days where, a lot of times here on the live stream over the past year, next Monday, hard to believe, 8 days from now is the 1-year anniversary of October 7th. Hezbollah unilaterally, unprovoked, began launching those projectiles at Israel on October 8th. And I said, when is Israel going to make the move it needs to make? This is unsustainable. You've got at least 60,000 Israelis in the north evacuated from their homes. This can't continue. The switch flipped on September 17th. And what Iran spent 42 years building up, Hezbollah, in the span of 12 days has been pulverized. Wow. Fascinating times, momentous times, historic times, Bible times, prophetic times. So we're going to keep it going here tomorrow. Hey, quick reminder too, if you like what you're hearing here on the YouTube channel, you'll love our nightly show on TV, on TBN, the world's largest Christian television network, every weeknight, Monday through Friday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with a re-air every night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It is called Stakelbeck Tonight. We just launched in March. It's going great. All the B-roll, maps, footage, pictures, video you want on the live stream, but you can't always get because, it's a live stream. You have it on the show, and then some great interviews. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, to give you an idea of the quality on the show, 2 of our favorites, I think, here on the channel, our good buddy Yair Pinto of TBN Israel will be joining us from Jerusalem, and Hananya Naftali, who's a favorite as well on YouTube and across social media. Hananya in studio with me. That's going to be great. Hananya and Yair on one show. That's tomorrow night, Monday, September 30th already, on Stakelbeck Tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, re-air at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TBN. And also, believe it or not, we have a second channel here, the Stakelbeck Tonight YouTube channel with clips from the show. You can subscribe there at Stakelbeck Tonight. A lot going on, and we like it that way. We're keeping it busy, doing the Lord's work, and we're so glad you're with us. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Until tomorrow, God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.